Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ecommerce Espresso, the webinar that is shorter than your coffee break. If this is your first time, welcome. Just so you know, we don't do a Q&A at the end of this session because we like to keep these webinars as tight and as neat and as quick as possible. But if you have any questions at all during, you can tweet at us at LoyaltyLion HQ and use the hashtag Ecommerce Espresso, and we'll get back to you right away. So let's jump straight in and meet today's guest, which is Laura Brooks, who's the VP of Client Success at Glew. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Glew as well?
Hey guys, I'm Laura Brooks, and like you were saying, I'm the VP of Client Success at Glew. And basically, what we do is help to deliver the best analytics on the planet for customers. So Glew is helping you to connect, transform, and visualize all of your data in one place. So what that means is, instead of looking at silos of data and disparate sources all over the place, so we're helping you to combine and bring it together, make sense of it, right? So you can take action on data and not just report on it, right? So that's what we do for merchants all day long.
Amazing. Help us get out of data hell and actually find the things that are really useful. I remember Glew came on my radar, probably like 2017, when I was at a different company in a slightly different role. And I was looking for data connectivity between all my various siloed data, and you guys were the right choice at the right time. So yeah, I'm really excited to be talking to you today, Laura, and we've got some really great questions lined up too. So why don't we just jump straight into the first question, which is, what do you consider to be the most important data points when it comes to loyalty and retention?
So when we think of loyalty, we think of loyalists, so our best customers. We want to look at some metrics that are important that go into, measuring the efficacy of a loyalty program, of course. But lifetime value to us is very impactful and very important to measure, particularly for your loyalty program members, right? So what we suggest is really looking at these in tiers as you have them set up in your program. I believe there's typically 3 different tiers. So you have like maybe your bronze, silver, and gold. I'm not sure if you name those different depending on, how you have it set up. But basically what we recommend is looking at those separately and looking at things like lifetime value, but things that go into lifetime value, such as your LTO, so lifetime orders, number of orders, right?
Yep.
That goes into frequency, which plays into lifetime value. We also want to look at things like average time between purchases. So how long are these members, particularly your gold members? We would assume it's less time in between purchases, but we can most certainly measure that, right? The last one that we were thinking about is relationship length. We've actually had some really interesting dashboards that, we can do out of the box in Glew, but also on the more custom tailored side, where people have kind of measured not only relationship length, but like time to signing up to a loyalty program. And then from there, how long do they actually wait before implementing, something like the points that are offered for redeeming those for purchase. So there's a lot of things that go into kind of timing, right? So it's always good to measure those types of things, but relationship length is particularly important. Maybe even, again, segmenting out to kind of compare, right? So when you have benchmarks where you can compare against the totality of all your customers versus these loyal members, is always a good way to kind of view the efficacy of the program.
Yeah, and a really lovely way to be able to understand where the impact is going to be. As you said, if you've got a tiered program, being able to look at what is it that makes your gold members or your top tier members so important to you, and how can you start to encourage some of those behaviors, as you said, like time between orders, time between receiving or gaining points and redeeming those points. I love that as a metric, as being able to see like, well, how quickly are people taking action based on the behaviors that we're encouraging, based on the loyalty marketing we're trying to do. Is the program actually inspiring that action? And then if you can start to learn a little bit about those times, you set your own benchmarks, so you can see, okay, we've got our non-loyalty, our guests who haven't signed up to our program yet. But if we can get them to sign up, then we can immediately, we know that their repeat value, the time between orders is going to decrease, and things like referrals will increase, all of those kinds of things. So
yeah, you actually bring up a good point. I was talking to a client yesterday, and we were creating a segment because we do have an auto push to Klaviyo, and we have our integration with LoyaltyLion, right? So we can see if you're a member or not. So taking that Shopify customer data, we can segment out customers that maybe have LTR is what we call it, lifetime revenue of certain tiers that fall into the mid-tier range for this particular customer. That's how they wanted to kind of segment it out. Again, I don't know all the fine-tuned details of your program, but I know there's tiers, right? So when you think about getting the opt-in to new loyalty members, we can create those segments for the tiers and auto push that and get the opt-in for more members that we hope to, in turn create that higher lifetime value because there is value in having that. I have some other stories, but I'll let you go to the next question. I think
they'll start to come up organically. I appreciate that. But yeah, no, I love the idea of, you actually being able to start to take that kind of data and use it to push people through and further up and incentivize them to engage with the program, engage with loyalty, and start to move themselves through tiers and get better use out of a program and build their relationship with the brand, with the merchant. All right, on to our next question then. How can you use loyalty and retention data to drive acquisition of new customers? So we talked a little bit about current customers and the relationships we already have and building those relationships out. But what about getting new ones?
That's a good question. So I was brainstorming with Josh on this one. Of course, you want to always drive value from your existing customers. Again, even the ones that maybe aren't opted in. So how can we get more engaged with the current customers, get them into our loyalty program? But looking at maybe, now Glew has a lot of insight around acquisition channels. So what we were saying is maybe looking at the top channels that your top tier customers, maybe mid and top tier loyalty program customers come from. We can use that information to then drive resources to the best channels to acquire those best customers from, right? Where do we acquire the higher paying customer? It always goes back to lifetime value, right? And so we have the ability to measure that kind of information. I think really looking at referral programs as a component of, your loyalty program, you're going to have your loyalists that you hope are brand advocates, right? So those are going to be the types of customers that you want to, basically recommend your business. So
you add into their personal networks, that kind of thing.
There's a funny metric. We were looking at some LoyaltyLion dashboards from some of our premium customers, and we had one that was average referral per customer.
Very cool.
And it was 1.7, I believe, was the average. Then they had one that was the most referrals from a customer, and it was 57.
Oof.
So
that is a VIP.
I thought that was very interesting. Yeah. So I mean, again, you never know who's going to be that. I don't know his name, but I feel like that guy needs some kind of love from
some special treatment, right? Some extra points. A gift basket.
He created
of some
his own
kind.
tier.
Yeah. Yeah, platinum tier for the guy who's recommended 43 different new customers. Yeah, that's amazing. It starts to give you an idea of once you start to dig into those specific journeys as well. I mean, I love the idea of saying, okay, well, let's not just look at acquisition channels for customers, but let's look at the acquisition channels that create the best kinds of customers for us. Those ones that come into our platform or come and purchase from us, often join the program, refer customers, and then you start to understand a little bit about, okay, we should definitely put more resources into the acquisition channels that bring us the best kinds of customers. And as you mentioned, with understanding that different referral rate between the best customers giving 56 or 53, whatever it was, all the way down to kind of 1.7. At 1.7, you're still doing okay. Someone brings one extra person, that person brings a few more. But if you can start to dig into the data and understand, well, where that tipping point is, the kind of people who might bring in 3 or 4 or 5 different referred customers, what is actually pushing them over the line? What channels did you acquire them through? And what actions did they take recently that kind of push them towards wanting to push out a referral? And you can find similar customers to them, and they would be the ones that you could ask that have maybe the highest chance of referral.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, yeah, what have they done recently? So what are the products that they're purchasing depending on your SKU count? I mean, you might have thousands of products. Like, how do you determine what are truly my best products? Not just what drives the most orders, right? But we want to look at the value of the customers behind those products being purchased. So
wow, I never thought of thinking about a product like that. Not just the ones that drives the most orders, but also the ones that trigger user-generated content, referrals. Yes. What are our high-value customers buying? Not just how much are they buying?
One of the other, we were thinking about, what's a good way to make the most of these people? Like, you've already, given them these incentives, you've got the point system, it's driving like more and more loyalty to the brand. So they purchased a lot, high LTO, LTR. So these are really the people that I think should be your target for reviews. So thinking again, back to the acquisition, right? People look at reviews. They're pretty big component of like how people decide, like, between the same product, like who has better reviews, right? So who better to reach out to than, your loyalty members or your top tier, maybe mid and top tier customers.
Yeah, those that have social clout as well, and start to give them points and rewards for leaving those high quality reviews. We've had a lot of success. Well, our customers have had a lot of success with not just encouraging reviews, but encouraging rich media reviews, videos, reviews on social media, starting to give more than just text, but images and photos as part of their reviews as well, and being able to give more points based on enriched reviews, because they add so much authenticity. They help other customers make decisions. So if you can use data to understand the likely customers, the ones that are likeliest to give you reviews, and kind of ask them straightforward, hey, do you have a good experience with that product or with the brand? We'd love a review from you. And also ask them to give referrals as well. Yeah, they're the ones that you're going to have the most positive response from.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're already here. Last question. Hot topic recently, especially among marketers and our merchants. Apple's iOS 14 update changed how marketers and advertisers could understand customer data and advertising data specifically. And we've got iOS 15 coming out very soon too, which will change the amount of data we'll be able to get from email tracking as well, opens and clicks, that kind of information from Apple devices. So what advice can you give e-commerce retailers when it comes to preparing and maybe making some changes when this new iOS update comes out?
Well, I mean, of course I'm biased, but data is king, right? So we've got to measure a lot of different things, lots of different testing. So the first thing before I get into that, I would say is most clients that I work with do not have full control over their UTMs. It's totally fine to have agencies. You're outsourcing, you might not have the resources in-house, so you're outsourcing to agencies and maybe consultants and things like that. Maybe you have people in-house that are, someone's in charge of email, you've got someone in charge of paid media, social, organic, all of that is kind of separate. The biggest thing is, making sure that UTMs are being set up across the board, not just for one platform, right? So Google AdWords, Google Analytics, it's a Google product. So those auto tag very clean. They're very nice. But a lot of times I find like Facebook and Instagram, which is where you're going to need to set those up, are not being set up. So I would do maybe just like a quick audit of your UTM parameters. And if you're like deer in headlights, like what is a UTM parameter? We have some content on our site, but I know we've talked about maybe doing like a webinar about it. We do a full like onboarding, like help you with that at Glew. But Glew aside, UTMs are very important because they give you a tracking code to accurately track over time, also mapping that data in regards to our tool. but you can always go back to that over time, whereas cookies expire. And as you know, with the iOS updates, a lot of that is going away, right? So we can't really track accurately, where we could before.
Yeah.
So it makes it a little bit more difficult when you rely on things like cookies.
Yeah, so I mean, I hear you loud and clear. The idea of leaning into your own tracking abilities, the things that you can really own yourself, and UTM is one of those things, right?
Yeah,
that's such great advice. Just to start with a quick audit, have a look at how you already go about your tracking, what kind of impact these changes might have. Look at the device breakdowns of the kinds of people engaging with your content already, reading your emails, coming to your site, that kind of thing, and assess any. What kind of impact is that going to have on your business right away? But then leaning into that first party data, your own tracking through your own tech stack, and whatever you can do to get people onto your site and actually engage with the content you have, as opposed to having to rely on things that are kind of outside of your control a little bit. I think that
yeah, that's exactly right. You have control over UTMs, and I would say take full advantage of the fact that you do, right? Instead of relying on auto tagging, and Google is probably the only exception. You should really look at all of your organic and paid. But when it comes to, really tracking things, a lot of it is kind of like a shot in the dark. I know there's going to have to be a lot of A/B testing, because there's a lot of changes taking place across, ad platforms and emails, like open rates and things like that. So it really comes down to, A/B testing. You're going to have to see like what's working and what isn't. If you're not doing it internally, if you don't have the resources to do that, it probably makes sense to outsource it. Find someone that is an expert in it, to just take advantage of, what you do have control over, what you don't, right?
Yeah, there's an opportunity to reassess what your success metrics actually are, as opposed to maybe chasing some of the, not to say that opens and click-throughs are vanity metrics, but you can start to look a little further down the engagement cycle and start to say, I know I'm a little bit biased too, coming from at it from a loyalty program and LoyaltyLion perspective, but start to look at those relationship building those relationship building interactions, I suppose, and activities where you can again get zero party or first party data, engagement with your own site, your store, the cart, engagement with your loyalty program. Are people signing up? Are they redeeming points? What kind of activity are they doing? And are you actually raising their purchase intent? Are you actually building that relationship more strongly, as opposed to, are people just opening your emails or clicking your emails? They were there to something is almost like a little bit of a security blanket for marketers, I think. There's something to be able to say like, okay, yep, we know that we're kind of getting maybe to the right people, or people are engaging at that top level, but are they actually being incited to take action? Are they having a stronger relationship with the brand? And that's where you can start to do some more deep linking, as you said, all the UTM work, A/B testing, start to look at what's actually driving performance and what's actually driving growth, as opposed to just what gets more opens.
Yep. And specifically, you had mentioned like, what can you do? So Facebook, as you know, has made some major updates. Google did not, but I know that you need to limit your in-app campaigns to 8. The count should be to 8, no greater. That was the advice that I have been given, from a marketing expert. So
very useful advice.
Yeah.
8 really good seller targeted campaigns. I think that's a great tip. I don't know if I could manage any more than 8 at any one time.
Yeah, and I actually I didn't realize that iOS 15 with the email, which
tracking
a
changes.
lot of people track those. The open rate is how you decide, like, did I have a good subject line? Well, that's not really going to be easy to measure anymore, because everyone uses their mobile phones nowadays, right? And Apple, as we know, has such a large market share. So a lot of missed opens on that. So really have to look at click-through rates and things like that.
Yeah, engagement with the content that you're actually driving towards. So yeah, I mean, my feeling on this is not to panic, especially as a merchant, marketer, an e-commerce manager, whoever you are. It's an opportunity to, as you quite rightly put, Laura, to audit your current setup. What do you actually know about this engagement, these interactions? What are you already tracking? And take the opportunity to sit back and say, are these really key performance indicators? What do we really want to know? And what would that inform on our side for change, for changes in our marketing, our product, our site, our user journey, and what's going to help the customer win? So instead of just looking at something like open rates, start to augment and use the sheer amount of data that our e-commerce platforms and integration partners can be able to give you, and through great work like Glew does in organizing that information and layering it over each other to have a better understanding of what's actually pushing growth at your brand and what customers actually respond to.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice
one. Well, time's absolutely flown by. Laura, I can't believe it.
Yeah, how long has it been?
It does feels like a bare few minutes, but I think we're crouching up on more than a full coffee cup's worth of chat, as it were. So why don't we call it there? It's been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for coming along.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having me.
No worries at all.
Glew.
It's been an absolute pleasure. For everybody watching, this recording will be on demand. So we'll send you a link through to that. If you'd like to share that with anybody who you think would find these topics interesting, please do. And as I said, if you've got questions for us, please just tweet at LoyaltyLion HQ with the hashtag Ecommerce Espresso. In fact, we watched that hashtag so well that if you tweeted anything with Ecommerce Espresso, even if you didn't tag us or Glew, we would definitely see it and we'd want to give you some attention. So feel free to get tweeting. It's been an absolute delight, Laura. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Ecommerce Espresso. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want more of these short but insightful webinars, you can catch all of our previous episodes over on our YouTube channel. Just search for LoyaltyLion. Before you go, why not see if you can identify the gaps in your loyalty strategy that are costing you the most with our retention score sheet. You can see how your approach matches up with our downloadable tool over on LoyaltyLion.com/retention score sheet. That's LoyaltyLion.com/retention score sheet with no spaces. We'll see you soon for our next Ecommerce Espresso.